Do you own a home? Well, if you do, or if your parents do, then in addition to having shelter, you are also building wealth. That's because in the United States, housing is not just about having a place to live. Owning real estate is one of the primary ways for Americans to build and pass down wealth through generations. For the American middle class, home equity accounts for about 2/3 of their wealth. But home ownership is not evenly distributed, particularly by race. Until the Fair Housing Act of 1968, Black families were legally and systematically discriminated against through racist lending policies, land covenants, high rents, and instruments such as redlining. So while the majority of white families saw their wealth grow from year to year and enjoyed relatively stable neighborhoods, the majority of Black families were left to predatory rental markets, neglected housing developments, eviction threat, and instability due to urban renewal and gentrification. This historic discrimination and the dispossession it produced is one of the main reasons behind housing disparity in the United States and what is referred to as the racial wealth gap. In 2022, almost 75% of white non-Hispanic Americans own homes, compared to 45% of Black Americans. In parts of the U.S. like the Midwest, Black home ownership has actually declined since 1968. Michigan, like other neighboring states, saw significant losses in the past 20 years with the subprime loan and foreclosure crisis. If we zoom into the city of Detroit, rates of foreclosure are some of the highest in the country. From the early 2000s, foreclosures in Detroit steadily grew and grew and grew throughout almost every district in the city. Between 2002 and 2019, 135,000 properties in Detroit went into foreclosure. That's 1 in 3 properties in the city. When we try to understand what is causing this housing inequality and insecurity, we find no simple or single answer, but a whole set of historic legacies and current policies, practices, and mindsets. So let's try to identify some of these, particularly for Detroit. Part of the answer is that racist real estate and lending policies did not end with the Fair Housing Act. Homes in Black neighborhoods are still appraised at lower values than in predominantly white, non-Hispanic neighborhoods. Even today, it continues to be harder for someone who is Black in the U.S. to be approved for a mortgage or loan, even with the same credentials as someone who is white. If you can't get a mortgage through a bank, you can turn to a private agreement called a land contract. However, one missed payment, which can happen easily for a low-income family, and the seller, who owns the title, can foreclose on the property. These types of foreclosures are the most prevalent in Detroit. A second reason is that even in a low-value market like Detroit, property speculators, landlords, and unregulated lenders are still profiting from systems of real estate that privilege private developers versus residents and communities. Many properties in Detroit have actually gone through multiple cycles of foreclosure and auction, benefiting speculators while perpetuating instability through eviction and vacancy. It's also not just the dispossession produced by unequal lending and real estate practices. Detroit's property tax rate is one of the highest in the U.S., almost twice that of the national average. What's more, a missed water bill payment is also rolled into unpaid property taxes and becomes cause for foreclosure. This disproportionate level of taxation relative to property value, which has been identified as unconstitutional, puts an enormous burden on low-income families, leading to high numbers of mortgage defaults and foreclosures. This leads to eviction and displacement, which can be both traumatic and undermines community fabric and security. But it really comes down to wealth. The racial wealth gap combined with the poor job market in Detroit means that over 1/3 of residents live below the poverty line and very few can afford to buy and maintain a home. Even with over 55,000 vacant homes in the city and a median home price of under $65,000, home ownership is still unattainable for most Detroiters. And finally, the lack of available homes suitable for low-income budgets is in part due to zoning policies that limit the availability of this type of housing option. In Detroit, as with other U.S. cities, single-family zoning allows only one detached home to be constructed on a property. This makes it harder to build smaller starter homes or more compact multifamily housing that would provide an entry for low-income families to America's largest system for wealth generation. So what can we do to change this complex and systemic problem? Instead of thinking about how to build cheap housing in the same unjust, discriminatory, and exploitative real estate and land ownership systems that have produced Detroit's housing inequality, what if we considered how to change the goals and the mindset of the system itself? And what if the seeds for a housing system that is explicitly community-centered, anti-racist, and anti-poverty are already there on the ground as real and actionable initiatives? Some of the first things we can do is abolish foreclosures and restrict predatory real estate practices and evictions in Detroit.
I think housing is a right. I don't think that businesses should be able to keep people out of homes, and the city should make a point about creating institutions that support housing as a right. So making sure that business owners who are speculators, who own properties that are not going to develop those properties towards what community members need, we have to start using the tools that are available to us.
Pretty simply, just people need to have a place to live that is safe, affordable, meaning paying less than 30% of their incomes on housing costs, and stable, so they can stay there, they're not threatened with leaving all the time, and well-maintained. For preventing evictions, a right to counsel for tenants is really important. Some of the research I've done with others has shown that when the tenant has legal representation, 97% of the tenants do not get evicted.
Second, we can restructure Detroit's property tax codes and their related paperwork to reduce the burden on low-income families. This can be accomplished through progressive taxation strategies, such as split-rate taxes or property tax rates that scale with level of income, the same way that income taxes do.
People below a certain income don't have to pay property taxes at all. The catch is the application's very difficult. I really think that system should be changed so that any properties below a certain level just automatically is exempt.
Third, we can advocate for and support city planners in revising and updating zoning laws to allow for more mixed-use, mid-rise, and accessory dwellings in neighborhoods. We can also help enable alternative forms of ownership, such as community land trusts and co-ops.
That missing middle housing, the duplexes, the triplexes, those kinds of housing options are more available. That would be where I would like to see it happen, and not just towers and large apartment buildings.
Perhaps more radical is to decide that everyone should have the financial capacity to buy and maintain a home and participate in the benefits of home equity.
It looks like assistance for mortgage down payments. It looks like homeowners that need repairs to their homes, folks who do own property that are from here that are not rich investors. Most likely for us, those properties are not owned free and clear. If we don't have a paying tenant, then we're responsible for covering that mortgage. There also needs to be protection in place for those types of homeowners and landlords.
This can be done through universal basic income or income supplements for everyone who earns below a certain level, raising many out of poverty.
A universal basic income is definitely desirable. It would make a huge difference. Basically, underlying all this is low income. So when people receive some income supplements, they try to keep stable housing.
Even more ambitious is to undertake reparations for the historic injustices to Black, Indigenous, and people of color who have been dispossessed of housing and real estate opportunity for decades.
It's not just something that is handed out just as a quick Band-Aid. You know, it's something that, a structure that's put in place that stretches out over time.
Housing reparations has to work in a way that it is not restrictive. Oftentimes we have these programs that come in with good intentions, but create all of these barriers. So saying, you have to prove that your family came from slavery. And all of these are layers that remove accessibility. I love reparations, but let's make it accessible.
Finally, and most importantly, we would create new structures and institutions through which communities can reclaim power, agency, self-determination, and dignity in shaping their neighborhoods to thrive.
My hopes for the city of Detroit as it relates to housing justice is that everyone feels included in how things are developing here. We have a lot of, it's a beautiful city, and the culture, the people here made the culture what it is today. If you're someone who has researched the neighborhood or researched the project and understand how it's going to help that community, and you're going in to work with them and not design at them, then people will see, here's what I can contribute. I'll take ownership of this neighborhood. It will in turn create safe neighborhoods, and then we would have a city that is inclusive.
It's my hope that the city of Detroit focuses on housing justice. And by that, I mean understanding that Detroiters have a right to housing, and not just a right to rent, but to support Detroiters to purchase homes, to support Detroiters in getting the true dream, which is access to the type of lifestyle that they want in the type of property that they want.